Hey guys, M here from Transformers and Video Games, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at my GoBots hands cuff, also known as Machine Robo number 13. So sit back and enjoy, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Okay guys, we're back. Now, I hadn't actually taken a very close look at this figure since I bought it at a garage sale last summer for just a couple of dollars. But since recording my intro, I have taken a closer look and see that this is not an authentic GoBots figure. This is actually a knockoff hands cuff. So either way, I'm still going to review the figure. I think, believe it or not, there's actually at least one thing that I like better about this over the official figure, and maybe I'll run through a couple of differences on how to spot the knockoff version, just so that nobody else spends any real money on it, thinking that they're getting an authentic figure. All right, now that we've got that out of the way, I thought I'd discuss the name of the figure briefly. Now, anybody that's familiar with the GoBots line knows that they were big on using these play on words to come up with the name of the figure. For instance, Cykill was a motorcycle, Coptor was a helicopter. Now, this one is maybe once removed from that. This is clearly a police cruiser. Police officers used handcuffs to apprehend criminals, and they have chosen that as their play on words. So this is hands cuff, which comes from handcuffs. I think this name was pretty weak, as I think most of the GoBots names are, but I still don't think that the poor marketing takes away from the figures themselves. Now, one of the first ways that I was able to tell that this was a knockoff was the paint scheme. And it wasn't a dead giveaway, just because I know that there could be color variations from region to region. So I'm still not going to hang my hat on that as a key indicator. But I will say that the color scheme you see right here, I've only ever seen on a knockoff version of the figure. The official version, the lower portion of the vehicle along here and under is black, and then the upper portion, including the hood and the rear trunk, are white. I quite honestly think that this looks better. To me, it just looks a lot more like a vintage real-world police car. So quite honestly, this is one strength that I do think that the knockoff has over the original. I have seen a knockoff version of it that doesn't have the chrome rims. This knockoff clearly has metal pins and chrome rims, which is nice. The paint job's not fantastic. You can see that there is some overspray here. I'm not sure if my camera will focus on that, but over here by my thumb, there's a bit of overspray, even along the bottom portion of the door. Other parts of the vehicle, you can just tell that the paint job is a little bit shoddy. The original version actually has clear windows at the side, the front, and this side. I believe the back are solid like on the knockoff. But when you look in the windows on the authentic version, you can see seats inside. And I don't recall if there's like steering wheel detail or not, but you can definitely see a driver's seat and a passenger seat in the front. Other than that, I mean, I've got to say it's a nice looking sort of Matchbox style police cruiser. This is a very small vehicle. Certainly, I don't think it's fair to compare it with something like Prowl from the Transformers line, because quite honestly, Prowl is probably anywhere between 6 and 8 times bigger than this figure, if you're looking at overall sort of mass. And again, these are just very small Matchbox-sized figures. So for what they are, I do think that they're very good. Now at the front, you can see there is a nice chrome bumper. There's a place here for the license plate. You can see some light headlight details and a nice chrome grille here. I already mentioned the chrome rims. Not much going on the back of the vehicle. No details been picked out. You can see a little bit behind here. Some of the chrome underneath that will make the robot legs after. Underside of the vehicle, clearly you can see the robot's head. And obviously it's not too much of a stretch to see that the arms are tucked in here and that the legs will swing around. But like I said, other than that, I think it's a fairly tidy little vehicle mode. So honestly, no complaints at all about that. Okay, so now let's get into transformation, which as you can imagine, it's quite simple. I always like to start off by just flipping these legs around like this. Very easy. And they just kind of snap into place like that, held in by some friction. Then the arms pull out at the side like this, and they just flip around like that so that the fists are facing forward. And that's all there is to the transformation. Now, one thing I'm going to point out here that makes this knockoff version inferior to the original GoBots version, you'll notice that particularly when his arms are facing outwards like this, they seem awfully low. They're pretty much just a little bit above his waist. I mean, that's where they've positioned the shoulders on this. And as ridiculous as it looks, I've got to say in the defense of the authentic GoBots version, the shoulders would be on sliders normally, so this would actually slide up to the proper shoulder position, and it wouldn't look so ridiculous. Now, I think it looks a little bit better if you just have the arms straight down by his side like this. Obviously not a very dynamic pose, but it does make things look a little bit more, as they should. Getting into articulation, obviously the head is fixed in one position, so it doesn't move at all, it doesn't rotate. The arms will rotate a full 360 degrees at his shoulders, and the legs really don't do much due to transformation. He can kick backwards like this, but really nothing, no meaningful articulation in the legs, at least with in the context of trying to pose him differently. A few things that I'm going to point out in the robot mode just to keep an eye out for to avoid picking up a knockoff version. Obviously, there's what I've already shown with the shoulders not sliding up to the proper position and the paint scheme that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. But normally there would be some molded in chest details here and here on the left and right side of the chest. They're absent from this version. And I believe there's even some additional molded detail down here in sort of the lower waist area. Again, missing from this knockoff version. I believe on the authentic version, the portion here and here, the left and right side above his head, actually stays attached to the arms. And if I'm not mistaken, that forms, that would be part of the fist. So you'd have a little bit of chrome on the end of his fist. Here they've opted to just keep that attached to the side of the head for some reason. Quite interesting, quite strange. I honestly think it would have been easier for them to just straight up bootleg the figure. But I guess even back in the day, back in the 80s, there was still some concern about copyright infringement. So they tried to make the figures, I guess, different enough where they wouldn't end up getting sued, I suppose. Having said all that, I think this is a nice robot mode. I think it's very well proportioned for the most part. He stands nicely. Backside of the figure is fairly clean. One other thing I'm going to point out here, though, if this was an authentic version, down here on the inside of the back of the legs, it would actually say the copyright information. This version says absolutely nothing. And I know that there are other versions, other knockoff versions that have Taiwan molded onto the figure somewhere. Again, for whatever reason, this particular knockoff doesn't have any sort of molded date stamp or place of manufacture. So again, very, very generic knockoff here. But again, I do think it's fairly effective for what it is. And quite honestly, I think the plastic feels good. The paint job leaves a little bit to be desired, but there's still painted die cast parts, like this whole part here, his head, his chest, upper chest, lower chest. That's all die cast metal. So they certainly didn't cheap out in that respect, even on this knockoff version. Okay guys, here we are with Hands Cuff back at his vehicle mode, and I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. Now in conclusion, would I recommend adding this figure to your collection? I honestly think if you can find an authentic version of the figure for anywhere between $10 and $15, then it's definitely good value and a great figure to add to your collection. Despite what some people think, GoBots aren't cheap knockoffs of Transformers. They're vintage figures that came out around the same time as Transformers, in fact, a little bit earlier than Transformers. And they're very cool toys in their own right. So honestly, if you haven't tried GoBots and you find them for the right price, I'd honestly recommend giving them a try. And for all you GoBots collectors out there, I would definitely recommend picking this guy up. Anyways, thanks again, everybody. Take care.